In the orchard of life, not all apples are brightly coloured and sweet. There is always one bad apple that spoils the bunch. In our channel, we peel back the layers of charm and civility to reveal the darkness beneath, as we dive into the twisted minds of killers who weren't just outliers, but predators hiding in plain sight. This is the story of Israel Keyes, one of America's most meticulous serial killers who possessed all the traits of a psychopath from his youth. Born in Richmond, Utah on January 7, 1978, Israel Keyes was the second of 10 children born to Heidi and Jeff Keyes. Like his other siblings, Keyes was homeschooled in the early years of his life, and his parents attended the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. At the age of 5, his father moved the family to a remote plot of land north of Colville, Washington, where the family lived isolated from society in a one-room cabin without electricity or running water. Keyes grew up in a strict and insular environment with little outside influence. While in Colville, his family decided to join a Christian fundamentalist group called the Ark, which some described as a hate group because of their white supremacist and anti-Semitic views. While living in Colville, Keyes met and befriended a fellow church member, Chevy Cahoe, who was later convicted of a triple murder. For many years, Keyes and some of his siblings were forced to sleep in a tent due to their cabin's small size and were required to hunt their food and work on local farms to support the family. As a hobby, Keyes hunted anything with a heartbeat and tortured animals. As a result, Keyes was ostracized by other children who attended the church, with one girl recounting that Keyes' presence made her skin crawl. By the age of 10, Keyes was breaking into neighbors' houses and stealing guns and sometimes starting fires. When he became a teenager, Keyes quickly realized that he wasn't normal, and that there were things that he thought were normal and okay that nobody else seemed to think were normal and okay. Upon this realization, Keyes decided to hide his increasingly antisocial behavior and desires to himself. Keyes eventually rejected his parents' beliefs and instead became interested in Satanism. In the late 1990s, the family relocated to Maupin, Oregon. It was while living in Oregon that Keyes came to the realization that he could commit a crime and get away with it. In the summer of 1997, while working near the Deschutes River, Keyes stood behind a tree and watched as the teenage girls were tubing with friends down the river. One day, Keyes saw a teenage girl that caught his eyes, so he waded out and grabbed the girl who was last in her group of tubers. He dragged her to a remote campground bathroom, tied her up with ropes and assaulted her. Keyes planned to strangle the girl and dump her body in the toilet pit as a part of a satanic ritual. However, the girl pleaded with him that she would not tell anyone about the incident, and Keyes later admitted that he was just too timid to kill and decided to let her go. It was at that point he vowed to himself that when he did this again, he would leave no witnesses. After the incident, Keyes relocated to New York, where he enlisted in the US Army. There he served as a specialist in Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, and the 5th Infantry Regiment. He was stationed at Fort Hood in Texas, Fort Lewis in Washington, and Sinai in Egypt. Keyes received an Army Achievement Medal for his service as a gunner. After that, he was honorably discharged and settled on the Maca Reservation of Neah Bay. While living there, he became involved with a woman, and they had a daughter. The relationship did not last, and in 2007, Keyes moved to Alaska to live with a nurse practitioner he'd been dating, and brought his daughter along with him. That same year, he started his own business, Keyes Construction, where he worked as a handyman, contractor, and construction worker. Very little was known about Keyes' life between his discharge from the army until his murderous rampage came to an end in March 2012. Keyes went on a murderous rampage for many years, unnoticed, and in the shadows until one victim, Samantha Koenig, brought that to an end. It is because of Samantha's untimely and gruesome death that the world was able to hear about the many evils that Keyes committed over the years. It was a cold winter evening in Anchorage, Alaska on February 1st, 2012, when Samantha Koenig went to work as a barista at a coffee shop. Just like any other day, she was at the drive-through window when at around 8 p.m. Keyes showed up with a gun and pointed it at her face, telling her it was just a robbery. He ordered her to turn off the lights and jumped through the drive-through window, where he immediately bound her hands and stuffed a handful of napkins in her mouth, then forced her into his pickup truck. He drove her to his house while telling her that he only wanted to hold her for ransom. Around 2 a.m, he finally took her from his truck and moved her to his tool shed, where he tied her up by the neck. Keyes then went inside his house to check on his daughter and girlfriend to make sure they were asleep. He poured himself a glass of wine and returned to the shed. There, Keyes sat drinking while telling Samantha how he would assault her before strangling with the rope he'd already tied around her neck. And that's exactly what he did. He left Samantha's lifeless body in the shed, went back into his house. At 5 a.m, he called a cab to the airport and flew to New Orleans for a 2-week Caribbean cruise that he'd planned with his family. When he returned from vacation, he saw the news of the missing girl and immediately thought how he could benefit from her death. That's when Keyes did the unthinkable. Keyes applied makeup to Samantha's face, sewed her eyes open with a fishing line, and took a picture of her alongside a 4-day-old Anchorage daily newspaper to make it seem like she was still alive. Using her cell phone, Keyes sent texts to her boyfriend, including a demand for a $30,000 ransom. Her family, hoping Samantha was still alive, deposited money into her account. Keyes later dismembered her body and dropped the pieces into a lake north of Anchorage. Within days of Samantha's parents depositing the ransom money into her account, her debit card began pinging. First in Anchorage, then in Arizona, then New Mexico, then Texas. The FBI quickly deduced that her abductor was traveling east along Interstate 10. But Keyes had made a mistake during one of his very first withdrawals. In addition to a masked man, an ATM camera in Arizona had captured a white Ford Focus. That information was pushed out to law enforcement across that entire corridor. By March 13th, a Texas state trooper in the town of Shepherd spotted the car in a hotel parking lot. The trooper waited for Keyes to exit the room and followed him until the car exceeded the speed limit, and then pulled Keyes over and searched the car. While searching the car, the trooper found Samantha's ATM card, her cell phone, and the same disguise worn by the man captured on all the ATM cameras where Koenig's card had been used. He was arrested and taken into custody, but Samantha's body wouldn't be discovered until April 2nd, a few days after Keyes confessed to the crime. It was during his confession for Samantha's murder that Keyes confessed to several other crimes. Keyes targeted random people across the United States to avoid detection, planning for months before he committed a particular crime. He specifically frequented campgrounds and isolated locations. He claimed to only use guns when he had to and preferred strangulation. This was due to the pleasure he derived from witnessing victims lose consciousness in the struggle. He claimed to not kill children or parents of children, primarily because of his daughter, whom he feared finding out about him and his crimes. Keyes confessed to murdering 49-year-old William Bill Scott Currier and 55-year-old Lorraine Simone Currier of Essex, Vermont. Keyes broke into the Currier home on the night of June 8, 2011, and tied them up before driving them to an abandoned farmhouse, where he shot Bill before sexually assaulting and strangling Lorraine. Their bodies have never been found. 2 years prior, Keyes hid a murder kit near the Currier home, which he later recovered and used during the crime. After the murders, he moved most of the kit's contents to a new hiding place in Parishville, New York, where they remained until after his arrest. Keyes admitted to investigators he had killed 5 people in Washington. Keyes claimed to have either buried or submerged a victim in a lake in Near Bay, Washington, between July and October 2001. He also confessed to the double homicide of a young couple which occurred between 2001 and 2005. According to Keyes, he beat the man to death and strangled the woman. He buried both. Between 2005 and 2006, Keyes said he had killed 2 further victims. One was apparently dumped in Lake Crescent, Washington. In 2012, authorities identified a possible victim known only as Lewis County Jane Doe, who was a woman found in the Peterman Hill area in Morton, Washington on April 7, 2011 by a passing motorist. Authorities believe Keyes may have also murdered 48-year-old woman Deborah Feldman after discovering that he had frequently searched for her missing persons case on his computer shortly before his arrest. Deborah was last seen at her apartment in Hackensack, New Jersey on April 8, 2009. Her body has never been recovered. When the authorities showed her image to Keyes, he told them that he wasn't ready to talk about her yet. It is suspected that Keyes buried her near Tupper Lake, New York. In May 2012, while doing a routine hearing, Keyes tried to escape from the courtroom after breaking his leg irons. Fortunately, his escape attempt was unsuccessful and authorities restrained him. On December 2nd, 2012, Israel Keyes managed to conceal a razor blade in his jail cell at the Anchorage Correctional Complex in Alaska, which he used to take his own life. It is uncertain how Keyes obtained the blade, as he was under security restriction and had to use an electric razor under supervision. He died by suicide on December 2nd, 2012, by cutting his wrists and attempted strangulation. After his suicide, the FBI discovered drawings of 11 skulls and 1 pentagram, which had been drawn in blood and found underneath his bed. One of the drawings included the phrase, "We are one," which the FBI believes to be the total number of his victims. Unfortunate for his victims, Keyes did not get the punishment that his ruthless crimes deserve. The psychology of serial killers is complex, and many factors, both biological and social, contribute to the development of their violent and vicious behaviours. Like Keyes, some of the traits are developed and portrayed from an early age. After his death, FBI agents raided Keyes' home and found dozens of books about murders, both fiction and non-fiction. Keyes also undertook a meticulous study of other serial killers, idolising people like Ted Bundy, who he felt shared many similarities with him. Keyes went on to say studying and reading about serial killers was a hobby, and that from his youth, he knew he was not normal like other kids. These bad apples continue to plague our society, hiding in plain sight and are just one crime away from being caught. If you want to hear more about cases like these, like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.